For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina rise?
Mr. Speaker, by direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 554 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 153, House Resolution 554. Resolved that at any time after the adoption of this resolution, the Speaker may, pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 18, declare the House resolved into the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of the bill H.R. 3717 to increase the penalties for violations by television and radio broadcasters of the prohibitions against transmission of obscene, indecent, and profane language.
The gentlewoman from North Carolina.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding, and I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the resolution, but would like to express a few views on why I will oppose the legislation. I'm convinced that the Congress has been a very poor steward of the First Amendment, and we're moving in the direction of further undermining the First Amendment. First, many years ago, it was an attack on commercial speech by dividing commercial and non-commercial speech, which the Constitution does not do. Then there was a systematic attack from the left writing rules against hate speech and introduced the notion of political correctness. Even recently, there was a petition to the Department of Justice that has asked the department to evaluate the Passion of Christ as an example of hate speech. So sometimes unintended consequences do occur. Next came along in a coalition between right and left, and there was attack on campaign speech with the campaign finance reform, with the suspension of the freedom of speech during an election period. And now, once again, we are attacking indecency, which we all should, but how we do it is pretty critical. And yet, indecency obviously is a subjective term, and it'll be yet to be defined in the courts. We should remember that the Congress, very clearly by the Constitution, is instructed to make no laws abridging the freedom of speech. It can't be any clearer. So if we have problems, they're to be solved in different manners. The excuse that because the government is responsible and own the airways that we can suspend the First Amendment is incorrect. It's a good argument for privatizing the airways rather than an excuse for suspension of the First Amendment. I would like to just close by quoting someone who is obviously not a libertarian and obviously not a liberal, who has great concern about what we're doing, and he comes from the conservative right. And this comes from Rush Limbaugh. He says that the government is going to censor what they think is right. May I have an additional 30 seconds, please?
I'll yield the gentleman 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
If the government is going to censor what they think is right and wrong, what happens if a whole bunch of John Kerrys or Terry McAuliffes start running this country and decide conservative views are leading to violence? I am in the free speech business. It's one thing for a company to determine if they're going to be a party to it. It's another thing for the government to do it. We all should be in the free speech business, and I yield back.